Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, we're covering a variety of different headlines with you. From yesterday's White House press briefing, where reporters expose the hypocrisy of the Biden administration, we also have these sanctuary cities still struggling to house all these migrants that are pouring across our southern border. We got updates on illegal immigration. And lastly, Democrats are pouring billions of dollars into their cities for the homeless crisis of which they created. We're going to break everything down for you. Before we jump into any of that, support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. Watch the video all the way through without skipping ahead. It does support the channel bigly. And lastly, share this link with your friends and family all over social media. With that being said, we're going to kick it off with yesterday's White House press briefing, where a reporter asked John Kirby a question here, and just listen to the hypocrisy from this man's mouth. Let's roll it.
Admiral, you mentioned Putin's response or lack of response to this anti-Semitic mob at the airport, but his spokesman reportedly said that yesterday's events were largely the result of outside interference and that the security meeting is in part to discuss attempts by the West to use the events in the Middle East to divide the Russian society.
Well, isn't that sweet? It's classic Russian rhetoric, isn't it? When something goes like bad in your country, you just blame somebody else, blame it on outside influences. The West had nothing to do with this. This is just hate, bigotry, and intimidation, pure and simple. And a good leader, a decent leader, would call it out for what it is, the way President Biden has called it out here in this country, instead of blaming the West for something and pushing it off to somebody else.
It's as if there's no mirrors in this administration. Folks, for years, when gas prices went through the roof, who did he blame it on? Who did Joe Biden blame it on? They literally called it the Putin price hike. They blame Putin for like everything. Inflation, grocery store prices, gas prices. It's astonishing. I mean, that's literally all Joe Biden has done. He hasn't taken responsibility for anything. It's head spinning, the lack of awareness from this administration. I'm not disagreeing with what John Kirby really said about Putin. I actually do agree with him. But if you just took out the word Putin and replaced it with Biden, you would come to the exact same conclusion. It doesn't stop there. So you have James Rosen here questioning John Kirby about how many hostages are actually in the Gaza Strip. They're being held by Hamas. He doesn't answer the question here, and James Rosen pushes back, which I appreciate. Let's roll it.
James in the back, you have the last question.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Two questions. First, on the hostages. More than 3 weeks have passed now since the original Hamas attack and the seizure of hostages. How many Americans have you confirmed in that time are actually hostages?
Less than 10.
That's not a number. I want a number from you.
Less than 10.
Why can't you give a number?
James, I've given you an answer. What's your next question?
You've given an answer. You haven't been responsive. Let the record show. The other question has to do with Israeli war aims. The Israelis have said that their objective, and they've been very explicit about it, is to destroy Hamas. From you and other administration officials, we hear that the objective is to ensure that Hamas can never terrorize Israel again. Those are two different objectives. Are you having a problem with the Israelis in terms of a clear communication here of their objectives, or have their objectives, to your eyes and ears, appeared to change over time?
No, and no.
So does the United States support the goal of destroying Hamas?
We support what Israel is trying to do to protect their citizens from the threat of Hamas. And James, I think you know this, we aren't on the ground fighting in this war. There's no intent to do that. These are Israeli military operations. They get to decide what their aims and strategy are. They get to decide what their tactics are. They get to decide how they're going to go after Hamas. We're doing everything we can to support them, including providing our perspectives, including asking them hard questions about their aims and their strategy, and the kind of questions we'd ask ourselves. But the question you asked me is a question better put to the Israeli Defense Forces. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Admiral.
I've noticed from this administration, it's always like, oh, well, your question would be better aimed at this, or you should talk to the White House counsel, you should talk to the DOJ, you should talk to the DOD. They're all there to get the president's perspective on what is going on. And John Kirby as well, to get his perspective. So stop trying to dodge every single question that's given to you and leading it to somebody else that's not going to answer their questions either. And whenever they do give us questions lately, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, where are you at on this? How many hostages are there? Well, there's less than 10. Okay, we'll be specific. Less than 10. What does that mean? Like, is it 9? Is it 5? Is it 1? Like, I don't understand. Hey, John, are you giving Iran $6 billion? Well, they haven't received one nickel. They haven't received one dime of that money. Okay, but is it frozen? Like I said, they haven't received one dime of that money. And we actually moved it from South Korea to Qatar so they can have easier access to it. So is it not frozen? Well, they haven't taken any money out. Well, John, if they asked to get money out, could they take it? Well, they haven't taken any. Hey, John, does your overall plan for what should happen to Hamas, does that correlate with the same plan as Iran or Israel? Oh, well, no and no. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. Actually, it's more astonishing. I know you're like, how can it, Brad? How can it? Well, Peter Doocy gives a layup of a question to Karine Jean-Pierre here, as he's done in the past, regarding calling out these people that are supporting Hamas on these college campuses and saying anti-Semitic crap. Will she call them extremists while at the same time she's calling MAGA supporters you an extremist? I hope you're sitting down, folks. Good morning, because here's her response.
Thank you, Karine. Does President Biden think the anti-Israel protesters in this country are extremists?
What I can say is what we've been very clear about this. When it comes to anti-Semitism, there is no place. We have to make sure that we speak against it very loud and be very clear about that. Remember, what the president decided when the president decided to run for president is what he saw in Charlottesville in 2017, when he saw neo-Nazis marching down the streets of Charlottesville with vile anti-Semitic just hatred. And he was very clear then, and he's very clear now. He's taken actions against this over the past 2 years, and he's continued to be clear. There is no place for this type of vile and despite this kind of rhetoric.
And we hear you guys, though, talk about extremists all the time. It is usually about MAGA extremists. So what about these protesters who are making Jewish students feel unsafe on college campuses? Are they extremists?
I've been very, very clear. We are calling out any form of hate. Any form of hate. It is not acceptable. It should not be acceptable here. And we are going to continue to call that out. And let me be very clear. This is a president.
She keeps saying, let me be very clear. The question is about extremists, you knucklehead. He's giving you a layup of a question. You say yes. It's an extreme view that people have in supporting a terrorist organization to eradicate an entire people called the Jews. It is extreme. Yeah, Charlottesville, those idiots, those racist scumbags, anti-Semitic losers are extremists. I don't like racists. I don't like anti-Semitic people. It's evil. I think we can all agree with that. So just say that they're extremists and she can't do it. But yet for you, as somebody that loves this country, that wants to make America great again, that believes in the founders' ideals of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, you're an extremist, but she won't call the people that want to eradicate an entire people an extremist. It's so wild. And she's going to say she's being clear, you guys. She's going to say she's being clear. Oh, God. Oh, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. It's wild.
That has continued to have that fight in his office, in this administration. You know, when he repealed Trump's Muslim ban on his first day in office, that is something that this president did. He also established an inter-policy committee to counter Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and related forms of bias and discrimination. We have taken this very, very, very seriously, from the president all the way on down.
Does President Biden look at these?
You guys notice she's pulling the same tactic she did before when she was asked about the rise of anti-Semitism, and she says she hasn't seen any rise of anti-Semitism literally like a couple days after Hamas went in and massacred hundreds, if not over 1,000 Jews in the streets and in their homes. And she started talking about Islamophobia and the hate that Muslim people and Arabs are getting in the United States and around the world. She's doing the exact same thing here, but just kind of a little bit more softer. The question was about calling people that are doing these anti-Semitic protests on college campuses in favor of Hamas and the eradication of Jews. And she's now spinning it by not calling them extremists, but now talking about Islamophobia and the things that Trump implemented, which wasn't a ban on Muslims. It was a ban on specific countries of which terrorists are coming from and pouring into our country, of which Joe Biden doesn't want to stop doing. That's why we have terrorist sleeper cells here right now, which is why there's contractors at the southern border. They're asking for the language of illegal immigrants to change because there's terrorists coming across our border right now. But you see that soft switch right there that she just did before, that she got reamed online about, that we did a whole show on, and everybody else was covering it because it went viral. Again, the anti-Semitism, the rise of it, to the correlation now she's spun it about talking about the hate that Muslims and Arabs are getting. It's insane. It's insane. I know I'm repeating myself, but is there any greater word than the craziness and insane crap that comes from this administration? And Democrats just lap it up. They lap it up. They love it. They love it.
These anti-Israel protests on college campuses and think it's nice to see that the country's youth are so involved, or does he think the next generation is doomed?
Here's the thing. There's no place for hate in America. No. I'm telling you, there's no place for hate in America, and we condemn any anti-Semitic threat or incident in the strongest terms. And you heard me say at the top, I gave a message to students who are feeling under threat right now, right? You know, we're tracking these threats very closely. We are there for them. No student should have to be able to go to class, live on campus in fear. And, you know, these incidents, these reported anti-Semitic incidents at schools and on campuses, that should not be. We have to condemn them. We have to condemn them.
So, did I miss it? Because I didn't see where she condemned them. Like, she said we have to do it, but the question is, are you doing it? You won't even call them extremists. I'm not saying call pro-Palestinian people extremists, unless they say they want to eradicate an entire people called the Jews, which some of them do. But I think we could all come together and say those that are in support of Hamas, a terrorist organization that just went and massacred a bunch of people, beheaded babies, lit them on fire, raped women and children, killed people's families right in front of them. I could easily say that they're extremists. Again, lay up of a question. She can't answer it. Well, moving into our other story of the day, New York City opening shelters for 2,000 migrants at airfield despite fire department's concerns. So it's a public safety hazard now, and they're still going to do it no matter what. It was the same thing that happened in Venice Boulevard, or at least Venice in California, where the homeless just took over the boulevard. I mean, they had beachfront property all for free. So 20 yards from the camps themselves were multi-million-dollar pieces of property. So homeless people had better property than those that are paying property tax on these multi-million-dollar houses on beachfront property. And it was a hazard because they were all fighting each other, doing drugs, attacking people, tourists, citizens on the streets, as well as their encampments were lighting on fire every week. So check this out. New York City is moving forward with plans to open a shelter for 2,000 migrants at an airfield in Brooklyn, despite concerns that the situation will be a fire hazard. The city is opening a massive migrant shelter at Floyd Bennett Field in southeast Brooklyn. However, the fire department and other city agencies recently inspected the airfield and flagged a number of safety concerns, including that a fire hydrant are far away, older, and largely not reliable. Why are they bringing this up? Because these encampments where they're doing drugs, they're doing paraphernalia, whatever you want to call it, tend to light on fire in the same way the homeless encampments do in these Democrat-ran areas, which will be our last segment of the day. Quote, "This is a recipe for disaster," said New York City councilwoman. Yeah, Floyd Bennett Field is a potential fire trap. If they can't put out a fire there in a timely manner, lives will be lost. Families with children. Look, Biden doesn't care about this. He doesn't care about the border. If he did, he wouldn't have 8 million migrants crossing into the interior of the country from the southern border. And it's only getting worse. He wouldn't have sex trafficking taking place in multi-billion-dollar business. He wouldn't have drug trafficking taking place at the southern border with another multi-billion-dollar business. He wouldn't have all these things taking place if he really cared. He doesn't. We've had truckloads of migrants die at a time. You have little kids walking across this desert to make this trip in the United States all by themselves. These smugglers are dropping them from like 12 to 13-foot walls and leaving babies out there. He doesn't care. All right? So it doesn't surprise me that they're pulling this stunt. Imagine if Trump did this and it was a fire hazard. The Democrats would lose their crap over it. Have you noticed that there's been no Democrats going to the southern border with the massive chaos that's going on down there? Like none of them want to look under the hood to see what's going on. When you have numbers that have never happened in the history of this country, I mean, you were talking like 5x of what Trump had, and they were all in their panties in the bunch when that man was in office. Now Joe Biden's in office, when you have millions pouring across the border, there's not a single Democrat down there looking under the hood. I mean, they had to drag Joe Biden down there, and he spent like 3 hours at the border. Never saw an illegal immigrant, by the way. Never saw a migrant. Let that one sink in. 6,000 to 10,000 a day at least at the border. That dude flies in. There was thousands in the streets. The day before, all of a sudden, according to Karine Jean-Pierre, they just walked off on their own. Just by happenstance. It was a coincidence, according to her. Almost exact words, by the way. It was a coincidence that they all just got up and left in the streets, and the streets got cleaned by somebody. Joe Biden shows up, a little bit of nap time, and talks to a few people, and he leaves, not seeing a single migrant, never talking to an illegal immigrant, nothing. It's insane. And like I said, Democrats lap it up. They love it. They believe it. They full-heartedly believe it. You gotta be a knucklehead. So the huge migrant shelter is set to involve 4 congregated sleeping facilities that can house 500 migrant families with children in tents on the airfield, which was converted into a national park. There'll be 24-hour security. I mean, can you imagine the price tag on this bad boy? We've covered this very similar thing where New York City put in an encampment as well, and they gave them bedding, clothes, 3 meals a day, revolving menu that was catered to their liking, meaning their specific area of which they came from, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, wherever it is, was catered to them. They had air conditioning, they had Xboxes, plasma TVs, coffee tables, sofas, rugs, laundry services, but I've already mentioned that, recreation area. I mean, these people, in some cases, were living better than some of the people in New York City. Like, own citizens are actually paying taxes. People were living better than they were. If you recall, they were kicking out military veterans to house illegal immigrants, guys that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, served this freaking country, and they kicked them out. You want to know what's really crazy? Is now they're having some people coming from the Middle East, from you know where, and they're kicking out our vets. They're kicking out our vets to house some of these people that are unvetted. I'm not making it up. It's real. Oh, so that's what's going on with these migrant shelters. Still can't get their ish together. So with that bad news, let's kind of offset it here with some good news. Judge orders Biden admin to temporarily stop cutting razor wire along the southern border. Now, you would think, hey, an administration that's come out and said, hey, don't come illegally. You know, we're having this whole thing handled. Why would you be opening up gates to allow illegal immigrants to come in? Why would you be flying them in from the dark of the night on undocumented planes that we've covered here with body cam footage? Like, why would you do all these things? Why would you cut razor wire to allow them in? That's a good question, because, again, they don't care. The whole conversation was going after Governor Greg Abbott and Doug Ducey of Arizona for implementing razor wire to stop the massive flow of illegal immigration into this country. And they got upset because people are cutting themselves on razor wire. No bleep, you're going to cut yourself on razor wire. How it's like you lighting your stove and you touching your hand on the stove and then you suing the stove company because it's hot. Yes. No bleep, you burned yourself, you idiot. You walk through razor wire. No bleep, you idiot. You're going to cut yourself. I'm sorry. If you walk through razor wire and you are baffled, you are completely shocked, head spun that you got cut from razor wire, you're a flippin' idiot. You are. I know people don't like, I don't care who you are. American, not American. It don't matter. You're an idiot. And so that's what's going on, because this administration doesn't have any personal responsibility, neither does the Democrat Party, for taking responsibility for their own actions. So they're cutting razor wire, allowing these migrants in. This is a big win for us. A federal judge ordered the Biden administration on Monday to temporarily cease cutting the razor wire Texas officials installed along the Rio Grande River to stop illegal immigrants from entering the country. Now, if you also recall, because of these illegal immigrants cutting themselves on this razor wire, they went after them for this. So Greg Abbott and Doug Ducey said, you know, fine. Specifically Greg Abbott, I'm going to put buoys in the water in the shallow ends so they don't cut themselves and they can't get across. So when he finds solutions that's not harmful to these illegal aliens, they come after him now for the buoys. The buoys were wrong. Well, it's federal land. You can't do it. It's environmental hazard. Come on. It says here, U.S. Western District of Texas, Judge Aaliyah Moses issued a temporary restraining order against the Department of Homeland Security and U.S. Customs Border Patrol to prohibit authorities from disassembling, degrading, tampering with Texas's barrier at the border with Mexico. You know, if you're going to cut all this razor wire, Joe, are you going to compensate and reimburse Texas for this stuff? Because I would also like to point out, Democrat-ran areas, these localities and cities, are getting reamed as well from this administration. This goes all the way back to COVID. They had these localities, you guys, when they were full bus loads, like coach bus fulls, Greyhound buses of migrants coming into these localities, not cities, localities, like neighborhoods. And they were required to give them COVID-19 tests. And back then it was expensive. And Joe Biden still hasn't reimbursed them for this. They put a local emergency, like a state of emergency, but for localities out because they couldn't handle it. It wasn't in their budget. They were so far over, they didn't know what to do. They didn't have the money for it. Joe Biden's not reimbursing anybody for the shenanigans. But you know what? He's willing to shell out billions of dollars for student debt relief. Insane. He's not willing to help the vets, but God, he'll house the immigrants. He'll house the migrants. That's for damn sure. People still vote for him. People will still vote for it. It's disgusting stuff, man. I'm not saying these people don't want better lives, but there's a better way of doing this. You're not helping anybody. You're definitely not helping Americans. The court shall grant the temporary relief requested, with one important exception, for any medical emergency that most likely results in serious bodily injury or death to a person, absent any boats or other life-saving apparatus available to avoid such medical emergencies prior to reaching basically the wire barrier. So that's what's going on. At least we got a little bit of a W. We got to take what we can get, fighting with these knuckleheads in the judicial system regarding all this stuff. But talk about fighting with knuckleheads. If you're a Republican and you live in a Democrat state like myself, or you're a Republican living in a Democrat-ran area, this is the shenanigans you're dealing with. And God, you are just throwing money out the door. You are throwing so much money out the door. It's ridiculous. Denver closing in on $2 billion spent on homelessness since pandemic. Since the pandemic. You think this number's bad? You should look up how much California has spent in homeless, trying to figure this whole thing out. It's like 10x of $2 billion. It's insane. It's like 15 or 20 billion. It might be more than that. It's some head-spinning number that we spent on homelessness. So Democrats have spent billions and billions of dollars on this whole thing that they caused. In the same way, Joe Biden's spending billions and billions. In 4 years, he will have spent $1 trillion probably on illegal immigration if you sum all the money up, just from a problem that he made. Let that one sink in. I mean, he's throwing money all out the door. Denver has spent nearly $2 billion on its homeless problem over the last 3 years, a new study shows. On the last 3 years, Colorado has spent nearly $2 billion on homelessness, mostly in the Denver metro area, according to the annual study from the Common Sense Institute. That's a funny name. That's something that Democrats lack, is common sense. More than $1.9 billion was set aside from homelessness spending, which comes to about $30,000 to $60,000 per person. Meanwhile, the homeless population in Denver is ballooning. In the same way, LA, one county in the entire union, has a quarter of the homeless population. They are giving people cell phones and money to live there. There was a guy that was interviewed on Fox a while ago that was like, why would I move? I think he was in San Francisco. He said, why would I move when you guys are giving me $600 to stay homeless? He's like, you guys are giving me syringes and needles to do drugs for free. You're giving me everything. I'm thriving here. And then they sit around at their table going, how can we fix this issue? You're giving all these nonprofits. It's so corrupt. It's so corrupt. There's all these nonprofits that were basically erected to fix this homeless crisis, but then they're just pouring in billions of dollars in these nonprofits, and these Democrats that are in these nonprofits, these elites, are just raking in all the money, all your taxpayer dollars, to not do anything about the problem. These Democrats are so corrupt. I'm not saying Republicans aren't. Politicians in general are freaking corrupt. And that's where all our money's going, in the pockets of somebody else that isn't solving the issue at all. The number of homeless people in the Denver metro area has risen 58% from 2016 to 2023. A rise. So it went from basically 6,000 to 9,000-ish. It's about a 58%, again, rise. Denver now ranks 10th in the nation from the highest number of homeless people, according to a study. God, where are all the other homeless people at? Where are like most of them at? LA, Denver, probably Philadelphia, Chicago. You name it. They all start with a D, meaning Democrat ran. It's a public policy challenge that dominated the election season and generated conversations in neighborhoods across the state. And rightfully so. This is an issue that pulls at our heartstrings and challenges our compassion. This comes from Kelly Caulfield, executive director of the Common Sense Institute. In July, when Denver Mayor Mike Johnson took office, he declared a state of emergency on homelessness and promised to house 1,000 homeless people by the end of the year. Last month, Denver police investigated allegations of a pop-up bar selling alcohol at a homeless encampment in the city, along with complaints about the tents being rented out for prostitution. Yeah, it's Joe Biden getting these Democrats starting other businesses, but illegally. Selling drugs, now they're prostituting in these places. It's gotten so bad where in some Democrat-ran cities, they're stealing power from the city itself. And that basically the electric grid can't even handle what we already got. So now people are stealing power, which is just going to cause the price of energy to go up, which you're going to end up paying more at the end of the day. But not only are they stealing it, they're also putting in full bedding. We've talked about this in the past. Full bedding. They got furniture spread out, spilling into the street. They have now erected walls up made of wood with actual doors. They have, it sounds so ludicrous. It sounds like I'm making this up. They have these makeshift houses that they built. This is in LA, that they built on the sidewalk, you guys. You have to knock to open up the door to get into this homeless person's tent/house. They have security cameras outside their door, you guys. This is walking down an average street in LA. Actual door, wooden walls, stealing electricity from a light post, full bedding, furniture, running water in some cases. This is what's going on. And Joe Biden's funding it all. They love it. Because if they didn't, this wouldn't have happened. You'd kick them off the street. But if you park on the street, if you do any of this on the sidewalk, guess what happens to you as a law-abiding citizen? You get shafted. It's always the law-abiding citizens that get effed. Have you noticed that? Whether it's gun control, we get screwed. Law-abiding citizens that carry and take care of the law, meaning we follow it, we're the ones that get screwed. You park on the street incorrectly, you get a ticket or towed. Homeless guys defecating on the street, balls hanging out, full encampment, nothing happens. If anything, here's $600, dude. Oh, you need a cell phone as well? Here's a cell phone. Oh, you want 3-course meal? Here's a meal voucher for you. You need a hotel room? Perfect. Keep your stuff here. We'll take care of you. Oh, your tow's gone. Your Mercedes is towed. It's gone. No. We're going to let this guy stay. He's homeless. But you that pay taxes, and you that have the energy bill going through the roof now, no, we're going to screw you. We need to leave this guy alone. It's gotten so insane that it almost sounds like I'm making this stuff up, but it's all real. It's all legit. Everything is ass backwards nowadays. Well, police also investigated complaints about tents and couches being rented out for prostitution. Other large cities have also been struggling with a persistent homeless problem and the drug use and crime that often go hand in hand. San Francisco has been in the throes of a homeless crisis for years now. San Francisco has a poop app, you guys. It is so bad that if you actually open up the app, in the same way that on your iPhone that you could drop a pin for parking and it does like a teardrop kind of thing. They do the same thing for basically feces on the street. To give you a perspective of what you would see on the app, there's so much human feces on the street that San Francisco is just brown. There's so many thousands upon thousands of those dots that people are putting down that it's completely browned out. That's what the app looks like. Wild. Democrats love it. They will not vote Republican in the state of California because they think we're the problem. Let that one sink in. For those on audio, I just did the crazy loop around the ear, around your head, like the loco, psycho, crazy, doesn't make sense. That's California. About 38,000 people are homeless in the Bay Area alone on any given night. That's up 35%, meaning it's only getting worse now since 2019. More than 7,000 people are homeless in San Francisco itself. Businesses have fled San Francisco's downtown, where foot traffic has thinned in part due to homelessness. Not just because of homelessness, but the lack of prosecuting crimes. Full malls are shutting down. San Francisco is a shell of what it used to be, as well as LA. Do not come here. It is not worth a vacation. If you're going to come to California, go to Orange County. Go to like Newport, Irvine, like that southern part, way cleaner, way nicer. People are a lot different, and you're going to probably meet a lot more conservatives because we're all in Orange County. No way in hell we want to go to LA County. That's Democrat territory, and it is boo-boo. In Los Angeles, homelessness is up 10% this year. Well, this is after pouring billions. This is after pouring billions upon billions of dollars, according to 2023 Greater Los Angeles homeless count results. In the city of Los Angeles itself, the number of homeless people jumped to over 46,000 people. In the broader area of Los Angeles County, the homeless population rose to 75,000. This is in a county, not a state. We're talking about 75,000 people, almost 76,000 people in a county. But they have it all figured out, you guys. They have it all figured out. What a dumpster fire. So that's what's going on in the world. You got Putin invading Ukraine still. You got Iran wanting to blow Western civilization off the face of the earth, including Israel. You got a bunch of knucklehead college students have been indoctrinated their entire life with leftist policy that's coming from the Democrat Party and the education system, going out shouting pro-Hamas statements about the eradication of Jews. That's lovely, of which the White House won't call extremists. You have Hamas killing babies in Israel prior. You got Israel going into Gaza. Unfortunately, a ton of Palestinians are being killed as well, which is freaking terrible to think about. You got China off the coast in the Mediterranean with us as well. You got China off the coast of Taiwan. You got Canada doing knucklehead things up there in the north with their socialist agenda. You got Joe Biden not protecting the southern border, of which there's terrorists in the United States now. Confirmed terrorists in the United States. It's not a guess. Not a guess. It's not a handful. It's more, it's like close to 100 terrorists in our country right now waiting to attack. And it's only getting worse. There's memos being sent out to Border Patrol saying, hey, we got to start figuring this issue out because now you got the jihad, you got the Hezbollah, you got Hamas, those three, and also the Iranians, some of them, know about this border not being locked up, and they're using it as a strategy to come back and attack us, along with the Chinese use it for spying. You got China having a spy base off the coast of Cuba. They're still flying stuff over the United States, which that's kind of rumors and speculation right now. I mean, you name it, everything's going down south. And we're supposed to pretend like the White House has this under control. Democrats have nobody. They have no bench, you guys. No bench. It's Joe Biden. That's it. Think about that. Out of the hundreds of people they have in the House and all the dozens and dozens of senators they have, a couple dozen at least, you're telling me there's not one that's like somewhat moderate that's better than Joe? Not one that says a lot about the party. We got a lot of good people. You can say all you want about Trump. Give them Trump, just for the sake of argument, give them Trump. He's crazy, or it's red, bad. Okay, whatever. We got DeSantis. Okay, we got Vivek Ramaswamy. You had Mike Pence. I mean, we got a deep bench here. And that flows into Jim Jordan. Flows into a lot of people that we could have here. So our bench is deep on the Republican side. Ted Cruz. I mean, hell, Trey Gowdy coming in the woodworks. Jason Chaffetz are good picks too. They're not congressmen anymore, but hell, they could run. Tim Scott's good. I mean, we got a deep bench here. They got nobody. And what's even crazier is if you do a dog shit job as a Democrat, you get rise to highest levels of government, including the White House. Joe Biden, dog doo-doo. Kamala Harris drove California into the ground. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House for a very long time, drove California into the ground. Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, driving that further into the ground. Wanted to run for president. You see a common theme here, you guys? You just suck at your job. Democrats lop it up, go, he should be president. So you run your state into the ground so you can run our country into the ground. That's how it works. Well, enough of me rambling, folks. Head over to baldbrad.com. We do have a book on sale called Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. We got merchandise here. I'm always sporting the hoodie, the good stuff. My coffee mug is dirty, so it's actually in the dishwasher right now. But we got mugs, folks. I want you to buy the mugs. I keep promoting that because I want to have a cup of coffee with you. So sue me. Not literally, but sue me because I want to have a nice cup of coffee with my friends, my fellow countrymen. You are American patriots. Whether you join us over here or not, we do have a membership. Just watch it all the way through a couple times if you could. Just pop that bad boy on mute. It does support the channel. We are growing here, folks. And some of you have been with me since like 100 subs. Love you to death. You guys are freaking awesome. Neil, Shib, Music Junkie. You guys, there's a lot of you. Shay, Princess Elder. You guys, there's all of you in there. MH265. I'm trying to remember all the names. A Persons 1. I think we said Neil. You're all there, okay? You know, I see your names. Love you to death, folks. You support the show. You support this country. And we need to continue that going forward. Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below. It does help greatly. And folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on the Paul Brad Show.